What's that, my sweet little baby gym owner? They left, and they're opening up down the road? The nerve.
Just got a question from a gym owner in the Big Little Gyms Pro group asking, what should I do when I find out that a coach or a member is opening up a gym down the road, and how we should go about this? So there are really only two reasons why a coach or member would want to open up a location down the road from you. Number one, they view it as you not providing the best interpretation of the methodology that you're doing. Number two is that you've inspired them and they've had an experience that they feel like they want to share with the world in their own unique way. They want to differentiate and come to market, and ideally in a way that's different from yours. And in most cases, it's pretty obvious in how they go about doing it and how they leave your gym. Either way, it's good for you to come to terms with this because it's something that is going to happen, and it happens all the time in almost every industry and in every type of business. In fact, I've had this happen in almost every business I've run. I'll tell you a story about a guy named Phil that I used to admire and was kind of a mentor of mine. I moved west with nothing. I was a poor Michigan kid, and I went and got a job in sales at a dealership, and I walked in with my Tor jeans, and Phil hired me for a job. And I already had some sales experience, but he really took me under his wing and taught me how to be a really, really good salesman and build a book of business and kind of almost run my book of business inside this dealership, kind of like an entrepreneur would run their customer list, how to nurture customers and leads and get referrals and bring repeat business in. And I eventually built the fleet and internet department at this dealership and became one of the top ranked salesmen in the entire country and world for this particular brand. I owed a lot to Phil. Phil had left the dealership at one point. I kept working there and we kind of parted ways. And then a number of years later, Phil came back around and checked in on me to see how I was doing. We had stayed friends. I told Phil that I had left the dealership. I went and started this company and I was doing really, really well. I'd started this landscaping company that I was installing artificial grass, and we were doing a couple $1 million a year. And Phil was pretty much broke, and Phil said, "That's pretty cool, man. I'm glad you're doing well." And we left the call. Fast forward about a year later, I find out Phil is doing the exact same thing as I am. He literally moved back from wherever he moved to where I was at and decided to open up an artificial grass company. Now, Phil didn't just go and kind of do what I did. Phil took everything I shared with him. I shared a lot with him because I was trying to help him with something else he was doing at the time. I shared with him how I was running my ads, showed him how to even look at my ads. And I found out that over a year's time, he was literally running my same ads to my same market. And I found out the hard way that he had bid against me in a job and had undercut me on the job. He had priced the job almost half the price, right? So I find out it's this company, and then I find out that Phil's the one who owns the company. So I reached out to Phil and I said, "What the heck, man? This is not cool. I looked up to you. You were my mentor. I shared that information with you to kind of reciprocate for all you did for me, and you went and used it against me." And he said, "I'm sorry, man. How can I make it up to you?" And I said, "Well, I do own a wholesale company selling the product. So, if you want to make it up to me, maybe you can buy your product from me," because we had become so big that we were a main supplier to the area to even our own competitors. So if you buy the product from me, we'll put the water under the bridge and it's all good. So Phil goes ahead and he starts buying product from me. He starts buying it job by job, paying in full, earning my trust back. And then Phil goes ahead, does this for about 6 months and earns my trust back and says, "Hey, you know what? I got a big job coming up. I bid. It's a $100,000 job. I don't have the cash to float the materials. Can I get a line of credit from you for 90 days? It's going to be a big purchase, $40,000 worth of material, and you could charge me full price if you float me the line of credit." So I float Phil the line of credit. He goes and does the job, and he pays me back. He does this 2 or 3 times more. I extend a bigger and bigger line of credit. I give him a longer and longer leash. One day, Phil stops returning my messages. Phil stops answering my calls. I have to go through a third party, someone we both used to work with at the dealership that knew Phil very closely, and say, "Hey, tell Phil to return my calls because this is a big deal." Come to find out, Phil's pretty much bankrupt, right? He was pretty much undercutting me to the point where he was not making any profit, and he was pretty much doing a cash flow thing where he was over leveraging himself and finally got himself in a position where he didn't have enough cash flow coming from a job to pay the bill. And not just me, but almost everybody else in town he was buying product from. And this is what Phil did. Phil ended up going bankrupt. And this wasn't the only time this happened. In fact, this happened a lot with almost all my businesses. I've had 7 successful businesses, and all of them had people that left and tried to clone things and almost always failed miserably to do so. Even my gyms, when I sold them to people that weren't trying to copy, they just bought the gyms that I had run. And when I left in both situations with both gyms, both those people, because they knew me personally, when someone knows you, there's that law of proximity where they don't really quite respect what you do and your abilities. And when I left, I asked, would you like some help, taking this on by yourself? And in both situations, they're like, "No, I want to do it my way." right? That's the thing right there, is they always want to do it your way. And something I learned through this experience, because both those gyms ended up being, to date, one of them's not even in business anymore. The other gym is, from what I understand, not doing as well either, right? So what I've learned is there's people, they'll take what you did, but they'll always try to selfishly do it their way, when they don't understand that if you built a business well, there's laws and principles of business that you're abiding by if you do it the right way, that you really just can't wing. There is no my way, right? There is the right way done in your own style. Now, I've had this convo many times with my gym owners, and it never serves them to hold grudges or to focus on these other people or to be on the back foot about it. If you're on your back foot, it's not because of them. It's because you were already weak, and all it took is one, not even real intense competitor to put you on that back foot. If they're eating up your market share, it's because you're both positioning yourself to be better versions of the same thing. And people in your market don't really care what you think is better. What people are far more intrigued about is what is unique and what is different and what makes you different. If they've went down the road and copied you and created a mess, the mess is not them. The mess is your message. So instead of holding a grudge and talking about why they're knocking you off and how you're better, instead talk about how you're completely different, you're the original, and you're nothing alike. People don't care about the features. They care about the specific end result the features get them. They're out there trying to sell a new and improved version of the same thing. They're trying to sell the drill, and you're the one selling the hole. People don't care about the drill, they care about the hole. Now, if you feel like you're spinning your tires in the mud and are frustrated, go to biglittlegyms.com, learn about what we do and how we can help you differentiate, generate more leads, get more of them in your door, command premium prices, and keep them longer. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Don't worry, my sweet little baby gym owner. I'm here to protect you and help you grow big and strong.